Hi everybody, Golden Era Bookworm here. In 2023, Joel Kellett, known as the Natural Arnold, competed and won twice in Australian natural bodybuilding shows. And in the summer of 2023, I interviewed Joel on his competition prep. Enjoy. All right. Joel, mate, it's it's been a while. Welcome back to my channel.
Yeah,
It's been, I
thank
think,
you for having me yet again. I think it's been a couple of years, hasn't it?
it's been 2 years
Hmm.
since then, of course, you've won this natural bodybuilding show in Australia. So congratulations. I just wanted to express my congratulations.
Don't congratulate me. I did like it's nothing against the other competitors, but I was expecting a much bigger turnout, and yeah, actually I went in and backstage was very dim lit, and I
Yeah.
saw a few physiques back there that I thought looked quite impressive. And I remember saying to the camera, I think I actually put it in the YouTube video I posted, that I thought I was going to lose when I went back to the car to get my weights to pump up. I thought, oh, I might actually lose this because I was feeling good until then. But then I won, and I think a big part of that was just by default. Again, nothing against the other competitors. I just think, they had been training somewhere between, a lot of them between, 1 and say 6 or 7 years. I've been training 13, 14.
Well, yeah, you kind of answered one of the questions I was going to get into. So, and
Oh,
I
okay.
think that's really important and want to discuss that too. Well, firstly, what natural bodybuilding show was it? I noticed it was in St. Mary's, so it wasn't exactly in
Yeah,
the Opera House.
no, they held two. I did two. They were both in like the inner west, like, from Sydney City.
Yeah.
So not too far from me. And both those shows were run by a federation called A&B, which I think is, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, Australian Natural Bodybuilding
Yeah,
Federation.
I think so.
I should probably know that.
Yeah, you probably should. You should
Mm.
probably be wearing their t-shirt too, man.
No, I had to represent my own brand.
I know, I'm just kidding, man. So you mentioned that you won by default, but what was your overall feeling of this experience? Because this is like your first win, right? So what do you think about all this?
Yeah, yeah, because I competed probably 3 or 4 times in total before. I actually even did an IFBB show as a natural, and as you could probably predict, I got smoked. And that was maybe 3 years ago now, 3 or 4 years ago, I did that, and I wasn't in particularly good shape. I did feel like I was in relatively good shape for these shows, so I thought I had a good chance of winning. And I heard that there was cash prizes, so that was an incentive to compete. I thought, okay, well, it gives dieting a deadline,
Mm.
and I could win some cash. And then I did it, and the experience was actually really good. It was a really enjoyable experience as opposed to other shows I'd done previously. I felt like there was a lot of like, I don't know, hostility backstage, whereas everyone at this show was particularly nice, and they let us film, and I had no complaints. So I felt good going into it.
So, well, that was another question. Like, how do you rate this show, this natural show in St. Mary's, run by the A&B versus others like the IFPB you were in previously?
I think it was run very well. Like, you know, they give you X amount of time before you go on stage to pump up. Like they try and tell you, with as much notice as possible when you're going to go on, and they have a run sheet. And this particular federation seems to keep to the time quite well.
Yeah.
I think there's another natural bodybuilding federation here in Australia too that does quite well like that. Whereas with the IFBB, I mean, keep in mind this was the show I did in Melbourne, which is actually the Arnold Classic, was actually, I think, run quite well. But one I did before that, which was probably now like 5 or 6 years ago, was really terrible. They'd say, okay, there was no such thing as classic physique back then, but they had classic bodybuilding, which was like you still wore the teeny tiny little G-string type trunks, but they had weight caps, so you could only be so many kilos or so many pounds per, depending on how tall you were.
Yeah.
So me and Brock entered into that, and that was run terribly. I think it might have changed since then. Again, that was like 6 years ago, but I hated that experience with a passion.
Mm, okay. Well, I'm glad it was a good experience for you. And I watched obviously I mean, that's why I wanted to talk to you about this whole thing after watching your video. Joel Competes, right? Which seemed like, even with the music, perfect choice of music, by the way, seemed like the
Thank you.
Australian version of Pumping Iron. So what was going on backstage? I noticed that, you were pumping and almost a little crowd formed around you. What was going on back there?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say that, but it was a pretty small space. So, but I think, I kept to myself. I didn't speak to too many people. I knew a few people
Hmm.
from gyms that I'd trained at previously, but I wouldn't say a crowd formed or anything. I don't think at that time too, I think I only had like 50 something thousand followers on social media. It's not like even now, I don't think I'm particularly well known, but it's gone up maybe like nearly 3 times that since I posted footage of that competition.
Yeah.
So at the time, yeah, it's not as if anyone knew me or anything. It was just enjoyable because I don't know, I felt calm. This was the first, not the first, sorry. This was the second time I competed without fake tan or without like, I don't know, I just didn't care as much as I had in the past. I think that's why it was so enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about it in a way right now that reflects what I saw in the video. I mean, you seem pretty relaxed. Were you nervous at all?
Mm. No, I didn't feel nervous. I felt, yeah, there was a moment where I thought, oh, maybe I won't win, but I thought, oh, well, that will make for good footage anyway. So there was no part of me that was like particularly nervous this time around. Whereas in the past, I probably did get some, I don't know, probably felt some nerves. I can't remember exactly, but I felt comfortable. I
Hmm.
think, after you train and diet and train and diet so many times for so many years, and I mean, if you do what I do, which is, I pose a lot in public places, especially like by the beach, when you've got X amount of onlookers, half of them are probably making fun of you. It definitely makes posing on stage where it's sort of expected a lot easier.
Hmm. Okay, it's true. I mean, what you're saying there, I guess you put yourself up and out in public
Mm.
enough for your social media that I guess you probably feel it's almost like a natural space for you now just to be an exhibitionist. And I say that with the utmost respect. With the utmost
No,
respect.
I know, I
You know what I
understand.
mean?
Yeah, that's
Well,
exactly right, though.
maybe that's the wrong word, but more of a um not exhibitionist. I had the word right now. But someone that I guess an artist is a better way of putting it, and you've got to present what you got. So
Mm.
uh,
To me, it really isn't any different than exhibiting a piece of art or a
yeah.
sculpture. It's very similar in that I don't know. It's except it's your body. I think if you receive particularly harsh criticism, it's not whereas maybe with a particular artwork, you can sort of detach yourself from that, but with your body, you can't. So at times you can take it maybe worse off, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you've got no one to blame but yourself. So that part about it, I enjoy.
On stage, mate, I mean, you also seem like as soon as you walked in, I saw the footage, like as soon as you walk on stage, you were almost immediately shifted and placed into the center. And it seemed
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be the favorite, like from the get-go. Do you think that the recent, like, um, hang on, like, yeah, I mean, do you think that the recent online information explosion on social media has actually helped physiques at all, especially natural physiques? Because I mean, when I compare them to you, like, sorry, there's just no comparison. They're all tiny against you. So what's your take on the whole natural bodybuilding physique level right now?
I think the competitive level still isn't there. I think there's a lot of extremely impressive natural physiques, but you'd have to scour the internet and scour social media, find them all, and then put them all in the one competition, and then you'd get all eyes on that particular competition, that particular lineup, and then it would be particularly competitive. But if I went to every natural show that was put on this year in New South Wales, in and around Sydney, I might, you might still see, a handful or maybe 10 or so really impressive physiques, but they're not all competing at the one show. Not all from the same location. So yeah, they're still sort of few and far between, but it's something that I said recently on social media, on Instagram, that natty or not psychosis is really rotting people's minds. So I know a lot of guys that had very impressive physiques naturally that were considering competing in a natural federation, kind of last minute opted out of that, started taking some form of performance enhancing drugs, and chose the enhanced route, and to compete in IFBB, and didn't fare well in it just because they hadn't actually dedicated enough time to creating the foundation I think they needed, even to then, if they wanted to go on and compete in the IFBB or take drugs or whatever it might be, there was no foundation. They were heading in the right direction, and then they cut that journey short.
Yeah,
I think that's what's happening with a lot of natural competitors.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you said at the right in the beginning, and something we're going to get into in a few minutes. And you also mentioned just now that you'd have to scour the internet, and that's kind of where I'm going now. Like, I think there's it's a small percentage of people, but you are seeing some very elite natural physiques now on the rise, especially on social media, where they're highlighted, if you want to call it. Yourself, Brock, Alex from Alpha Destiny, Alex Leonidas, Hersoviak, his actual name is Axel, Prometheus Project, all these guys, his name's Justin Wanning. Would you consider?
Yeah, I know him.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are all really top tier natural elites.
Yeah.
Would you consider then this current era like a new renaissance of natural bodybuilding at all?
What's that? Sorry?
Would you consider this current era with you guys on the rise like a new renaissance of natural bodybuilding?
I think so. I'm definitely seeing more particularly impressive natural physiques. But again, what comes with that is that natty or not psychosis that is preventing people from believing what they're seeing. And to be fair, it's understandable. There have been so many, especially people on social media, there have been so many, natural, I don't know, for lack of a better term, athletes or bodybuilders that have eventually come out or been caught, taking steroids or taking some form of PEDs, and that's caused a lot of distrust in people. But I still don't think that way of thinking is beneficial. I still believe giving everyone, as a natural bodybuilder, so for anyone that's watching this who is a natural bodybuilder, I will forever believe that giving everyone, regardless of how big, muscular, shredded, vascular they are, giving everyone the benefit of the doubt and focusing more so on your physique and not limiting your potential, especially not letting someone else limit your potential by having them tell you what is and isn't achievable naturally. That's kind of the worst way to approach bodybuilding, period. And this is something else I want to add to that, is that if the same people that say, especially the people that do take steroids, I saw someone made a little clip on me to say, I'm definitely not natural, blah, blah, blah. And he takes steroids, but why doesn't he look like Phil Heath? So he uses every excuse in the book. Like he disregards, say, I mean, I don't even care too much for genetics, but he disregards genetics as being a determining factor as to like why two natural competitors one might be smaller than the other or whatever. One might be significantly larger, more muscular, more vascular, whatever it might be. He disregards genetics when it comes to natural bodybuilding. But then when it comes to bodybuilders who take steroids, he's in his own words, by his own admission, is significantly smaller than someone like Phil Heath because of genetics. So you could take two guys that take steroids. One's going to be significantly bigger, train just as intensely, diet just as hard, but he's nowhere near even in the same realm as someone like Phil Heath or Ronnie Coleman or Jay Cutler, because otherwise everyone would look like Jay Cutler and Phil Heath and Ronnie Coleman. But then you take two natural competitors, one's even just slightly bigger than a strand of grass, and all of a sudden that guy's unnatural.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me. And then they don't let any other determining factors be the cause for that. I mean, eventually, like any other sport, you're going to have to see genetic outliers, or just, these sort of, I wouldn't even say one-off. They're sort of like, at this rate, it feels like 1 in 100 or maybe 1 in 1,000 really good natural physique. So that's quite a few. But they're just going to call fake Natty to every single one of them.
I think you're just pointing out these people that are, I always call them jealous, they're jealous and they are very single-minded. I mean, the fact that they are discussing that point single factorially, you could call it, with just one thing, and not even in an equal manner, because they're talking about genetics and its influence when you're enhanced, but not when you're talking about natural physiques. When in all, like, bodybuilding is a very multifactorial sport, or at least in regards to what affects it. And you could have been training for 10 years or 15 years. The other guy who's smaller could have been training for 1 or 2 years. And, and then you're going to say that the other guy who trained for 10 to 15 years is enhanced. I mean, I would ignore this guy completely, because he has no idea what he's freaking talking about. And
that's the worst part of it all too. There's so many guys that take steroids that, I mean, there were people that looked at the YouTube video and said, look at the lineup, look at him, look at everyone else. And it's exactly what you just said. I spoke to the other competitors. There was at least some of them said, oh, I've only been training a couple of years, but I was like obese and I lost all this weight. So I'm doing it as like a, they had their own reasons for why they were competing, but they obviously took the natural route. But you can look at that guy because he doesn't have, a physique that even in, like, say, in clothing, you'd open your eyes to, you know what I mean? But he's achieved his own goal, but that was a physique achieved within 2 years. And it's like you said, then I might have been training 14 years, which, keep in mind, I don't meet many people that have been training 14 years. And when I say 14 years, I mean 14 years consistently, intensely, day after day after day. Like, I think the longest period of time I ever had off was like a few weeks. And that was when I had swine flu. Maybe like that was like 8 years ago or something, 10 years ago. But other than that, I'm almost training every day intensely. I eat well year round. I don't really skip a beat. And there's not many people that do that.
Yeah. Well,
so I think it's just easy to say, for people that haven't done that it's steroids.
Did you practice? I noticed that your posing was also really smooth on stage, going back to the stage footage. Did you practice much posing, like, before the competition? Like, what was your posing plan like, if you had one?
No, because I knew ahead of time that you didn't, with this particular federation, you don't get an individual posing routine. I didn't put all the footage in because I just wasn't a fan of it, to be honest. But and it didn't I don't think it flows well. It didn't look that nice, but I think it's just for time's sake. They have so many divisions that they kind of just, for every division, if they had a individual like 2-minute posing routine, you'd be there all day. So we came out and did kind of like a T-walk where you'd hit a pose in the middle and a pose over here and a pose there, and then you go back and form the line to do the mandatory poses. So, and I don't think I included that. So I didn't prepare per se and prepare a routine. And I mean, I posed a lot anyway. So there's nothing I did specifically to prepare for it. I've got so used to hitting the same sort of poses, the poses that I think suit my physique best.
Yeah, I only commented that because your posing was also superior to theirs. That's why. What did you think are the most important factors now in developing a natural physique? I know we've touched on that, but especially having now competed and won, what do you really think are the most important factors?
I hate to say perseverance, but I think that is something that you're going to have to need because, and when I talk to, younger guys at the gym and I mentioned it or on social media and I mentioned 10 years to them, it's going to take you 10 years before you truly recognize your natural potential. They hate the sound of that. They're like, 10 years. And then I might ask them how long they've been training, and it might be 2 years. I said, yeah, that's not a long time. Because some of them say, I've been training a while. I go, how long? 2 years. But that's nothing.
Yeah.
That's a little blip in the grand scheme of things. I say 10 years minimum before you start talking about genetics and all the rest of it. You've got to be training, dieting, whatever else you might want to do, tanning for 10 years before even roughly how you're going to look as a natural competitor.
I agree.
So perseverance is necessary. But I think it all goes hand in hand. But I've learned the most important thing is definitely recovery. But when I say recovery, I do mean sleep. Most importantly, getting like if I say fall asleep or get to bed at like 10:30 p.m. and I don't set an alarm and I wake up naturally, I could find myself waking up at nearly 10 a.m., 9:30, 10 a.m. the next day. It's like, then I get to realize, oh, wow, that's kind of probably how much sleep I need given how intensely I'm training. And if I train twice a day, it's necessary. And I think people, people don't place enough importance on sleep and quality of sleep.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on several factors there. Obviously, having the perseverance to train that long. I mean, the reaction that you get from people when you state that said it all. I mean, do they even have that perseverance to go for that long, and the patience, the willpower, and then as you mentioned, recovery as well, when this actual growth occurs. Now, you mentioned something like at least 10 years. Is that what you think is necessary for a foundation, or do you think that's less or more?
I think it can be. I think like the physique I have, the level of muscularity, basically the amount of muscle I have at my height. I'm 6 foot and I weigh about 90 kilos. I think that can be achieved in less time than I've achieved it. But a lot of those years were spent not knowing exactly, what worked best for me. I had to learn my body, and a lot of people aren't willing to wait for that. But that's why I say, well, if you're gonna do something, stick to it, and you kind of have to stick to it for a minimum of 6 to 12 months. But a lot of people are doing one thing for a month, something else the next, and they're not sticking to one thing. And that's why you can see someone that does CrossFit with a fantastic physique. You can see someone that does F45 with a fantastic physique. You can see someone that does, a stock standard, quote unquote bro split with a fantastic physique. You can see good physiques in every sport, but you have to be consistent with that one thing.
Yeah.
That's why I looked at guys like Arnold and Serge Nubret and Franco and mimicked what they did, and the results spoke for themselves. Unfortunately, to like all the naysayers that say what I do isn't beneficial, I still think the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
They want to emulate the golden physique, but they want to use modern science to achieve it, and it just doesn't yield the same result.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things you just mentioned as well there regarding foundation. That was that it takes a while even just to learn yourself, what you respond to in the gym, diet-wise, how long you need sleep to optimally grow, all these factors, because you're doing something completely new, and a lot of people just expect results so quickly without even learning themselves and how they react to all these different things. And that's something that I think people need to reflect on. You're building your body, and it's changing every time you hit a session, every time you change a meal, you have a meal, sorry. So there's a lot going on, and that process takes time. And yeah, I think this is one thing that most people simply do not have the patience for, or may not even be aware of how important that process is. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, they're not aware of it, and when they get told, it scares them off.
Yeah, it's like a shock. That's my point, you
Yeah,
know. I think a
yeah,
lot of them are either aware of it or maybe know about it and don't want to hear it because it's too difficult,
mm,
you know.
yeah,
Then there's
yeah,
something wrong with their willpower too, you know, with how much
yeah.
they really want it and if they're willing to go through that whole process. Um, Now, benchmarks. Do you think there's any benchmarks that one should achieve before entering a natural bodybuilding competition, especially seeing that we're talking 5 to 10 year foundation process?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I'm of the opinion that you should be training and dieting. When I say dieting, I just mean prioritizing whole foods, sticking to something. I mean, you don't have to do it my way, but I think whole foods is the way to go, just so you know exactly what you're getting in, you know, how many grams of protein, carbs, fats you're getting in. And you got to stick to something for a minimum of, I would say, like 2 to 3 months before you can see the effects of that particular diet. And that might be over the course of you sort of doing that, playing around with things for, I just don't see anywhere between sort of 3 to 5 years. Any less than that, I don't see that being enough. I think you've
Mm.
really got to learn your body in that time. So I personally, if I was within the first couple of years of training, I wouldn't compete.
Mm.
But to each their own. I mean, it's no skin off my nose, nor should it be off anyone else's. If you've trained only a year and you want to compete, by all means, jump up there. You could be a genetic outlier and gain muscle rapidly, or just you might figure out what works best for your body in a much shorter time frame than I did, and you might actually look very good. I just think you should also be surrounded by people that are going to be honest with you, not just inflate your ego or blow smoke up your ass I don't know,
Yeah.
for whatever reason it might be. I don't particularly like people like that, and I think that's why so many people, they get into the gym. I remember I used to have like there was a lot of, not guys and girls, but there was a lot of girls I knew when I had started training, and especially when I if I had mentioned I sort of wanted to get into bodybuilding or be a bodybuilder, that it was kind of laughed at, and then they, at some point in time, more so recently, got into the gym, and within a year of being in the gym, just within a year of being in the gym, they're personal trainers, they've competed, they've got all this stuff in their bio. Like, it's like all of a sudden they're experts on it. I'm like, you laughed at me just a few years ago. You thought it was funny. The idea of it was funny and self-centric and all the rest of it. But I think it's because half of them are surrounded by people that are just like, they got that yes queen mentality. It's like, that's not just girls, it's guys as well. They're just blowing smoke. Everyone's blowing smoke up everyone's ass. It's all a bit fake.
Yeah.
You need to be surrounded by people that are going to be brutally honest with you. And if, I think at times I had that, even Brock to me would say, like, he didn't think I was ready for, I think, one of the first bodybuilding shows we did. And I go, nah, 10 in a pump, I'll look fantastic. And I saw photos after and I thought, geez, my butt looked like a nappy. It was so soft. It was, the whole thing was, I never should have done it. And I should have taken his advice, but I didn't listen.
Yeah. Be interesting to
So
see those photos of your earlier competitions. I've never seen those. If you have them, please send them because I'd like to see. And I think
yeah, I'll send some too. I'll send some.
I think it would also prove what you've been saying. A lot of people haven't seen photos of you when you were younger. I've seen them because you've sent them to me. I've got them somewhere. And yeah, it's just taken a while for you to get to this point.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think strength, range of motion in your joints, functionality, so to speak, are important benchmarks at all for natural bodybuilders? And has it been important at all for your progress to where you are now?
Strength hasn't. I can say that with certainty, that strength hasn't been important to me in terms of gaining muscle, developing my physique. And I'm not so sure why there's so many guys, especially young guys, that are you know, pushing more so for that. When you talk to them and their goal is just to improve their physiques, for some reason they've got this hyper fixation on also just getting as ridiculously strong as they can get in the shortest time frame possible. And I think it's because that comes with not instant, but gratification that comes a lot sooner than, when I say you might have to wait, 6 to 10 years, they don't like hearing that. So strength training and training for, a new PR is a lot more rewarding because it can come a lot sooner, especially if you're ego lifting or you've got 10 of your mates spotting you, and you haven't genuinely earned it.
Yeah.
I think that's why. And the reason I say it didn't benefit me is because over time, as I've got bigger, some of my lifts, when I focused more on time under tension or full range of motion or, holding a contraction for half a second, some of my lifts have gone down and I've got more out of it. I mean, that's why I've mentioned this more so in recent YouTube videos, that my aim now and for as long as I can remember has been to get the most out of the least amount of weight and let the muscles do the work and not jeopardize the integrity of the joints and ligaments so much. And I think then you'll see longevity in the sport. If you're rushing to make strength gains because you think there's a direct correlation between weight lifted and muscle obtained or acquired, well, you're wrong, and that's just not the case, because otherwise every guy that's half my age in the gym should be twice the size I am, because they're lifting a lot more than me, whether it's with good form or not, doesn't matter. But they ask me what my bench is or what my squat is, and they're like, oh, I can do more than that. I go, yeah, but you're half my size, and my goal is to improve my physique, not to, lift as much weight as I possibly can. I'm a bodybuilder, not a weightlifter.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. The reason I raise that, and I raise that a lot to natural bodybuilders, some will agree with you, others will not. And I give you an example of your own idol or your own, I guess, ideal. Let's put it that way. Right back there, Arnold. Right, he started off as an Olympic weightlifter and powerlifter. That was actually one of his goals, to become strong, because his own idol, Reg Park, was brutally strong, with the belief that strength did correlate with muscle, and that's why I brought it up. But it's interesting to see that there are bodybuilders that think like you and say that quote, I'm a bodybuilder, not a weightlifter. Whereas others, including Arnold, if we look at the golden era, we've got Sergio Oliva, who also started as a weightlifter, Franco as a powerlifter, and Arnold, and maybe more recent times, Ronnie Coleman. But then you've got others such as Steve Reeves, who was never really a weightlifter, Larry Scott.
Cutler.
Jay Cutler, Larry Scott.
Jay Cutler. Lee
Haney. So you got kind of both sides there. Going further back, Frank Zane wasn't one, So and you got Olympia winners there too. Some with that motto, and others with the motto that you have. So I think,
except I determined my belief. I mean, not just based off my own experience, but if you take Arnold, for example, and he says it in interviews, but I'm not sure to what extent, he might believe that, but he's said that developed his foundation.
Yeah.
But if you watch his transition from weightlifting to bodybuilding, all his lifts, as he added more volume to the training, naturally he reduced the amount of weight he was using, and his physique improved. So if we're talking about just from a bodybuilding perspective, I don't see. You can say that it might work for some, but there's no direct correlation between the two. Amount of weight lifted and muscle acquired, and that's because even if it was sort of a 50-50 split, even if it was, say, a 70-30 split, there was 30% of bodybuilders that benefited off lighter weights, then you still can't make a direct correlation. Yeah. And there's so many other things with bodybuilding that you can't record. It's like intensity, determination, effort, level of effort. That's why there's not a single study that I'm going to believe, because a lot of these studies using people that they might be paid, they might be people that weren't previously training, and again, they can't accurately determine their level of effort in what they're doing. So it's too hard to say.
I think it's personally, I agree with you, and the reason is that if we want to talk science, we've got different people here with different muscle fiber types. It's that simple. And those that are going to favor the weightlifting approach are those that are going to probably have a predominance of fast twitch muscle fibers, whereas in your case you might have the opposite, a greater percentage of slower twitch muscle fibers, and therefore you're simply going to respond faster and more in an accelerated form with the approach you're taking. And again, that has got to do with figuring yourself out in the gym, what you respond best.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, if you look at Ronnie Coleman in his powerlifting days, he was freaking huge. He basically could just walk in on stage looking like that, but he wasn't doing hypertrophy training. So there's differences with everybody, and I think, as you mentioned, people need to work themselves out. So that's why I think both.
Yeah, exactly. And Ronnie, just quickly, Ronnie Coleman is a good example of someone that started in the weightlifting, powerlifting, or started training in that style. But most of the footage that you can find of him when he was at his peak, when he was training for bodybuilding, it's not like he was putting himself through that style of powerlifting, weightlifting training every session. It was the weight, like, especially if you watch him train bicep, if you watch him train arms or anything like that, it's not like weight that no one else can do. It's fairly manageable weight, especially for that size. So he's, I still believe that their physiques improved once they were training more specifically for bodybuilding, and that is slightly higher volume, less weight.
Undeniably. I mean, I'm just saying that
it's not to say it's lightweight. It's just light relative to what they could lift if they were doing fewer reps. It's still heavy.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, moving on. Which exercises then, I mean, for you at least, have been the best to concentrate on during your foundation to develop your natural physique? I think this is something most people want to know.
Yeah, I think other bodybuilders have, touched on this, even got into detail on this. Like there's a handful of exercises you could do indefinitely that would, forever improve your physique. Things like just barbell bicep curls, preacher curls, tricep, rope push downs, dumbbell. If you could only pick one exercise for chest, I would say dumbbell, flat dumbbell press, or like a slight incline dumbbell press, dips, squats, obviously, for back, pull-ups, and rows, like T-bar or straight bar rows. Like, you can keep it really simple. I think like the idea of just doing more exercises is to create some sort of excitement in the gym so that you're not bored. But yeah, you can get away with very few exercises. I just think free weights, just because of the simplicity of it, and the like with dumbbells, it's kind of like a infinite multi-function machine in a way, where you can do curls, overhead tricep extensions, rows, presses, overhead presses. You can do squats with dumbbells, whatever you need to do. You can keep it simple. It doesn't have to, you don't have to overcomplicate it. There's nothing specific or new that I'm doing. Like I actually try and like I said before, emulate what they were doing in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, but I agree. Free weights are, at least in my opinion, rule just because of their versatility. When you've got a machine, there's only a limited amount of things you can do. The more specific the machine is, the less applicable it is to the rest of your body. Whereas a free weight, as it says, it's free movement. So do whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How long did I mean, you kind of touched on this earlier, but and you've mentioned you've trained at least 10 years, but how long did you train before entering this specific competition versus, for example, when you had only competed for the IFBB when Brock told you you weren't ready yet? What's the difference here?
I think I'd only trained for maybe like 6 years, 6 or 7 years when I competed in the first IFBB show.
Mhm.
And I'm not even sure. I think I competed in that because I don't even know if there was like other natural federations. There might have been. I just hadn't heard of any.
Mhm.
Um, and when I competed, what was it, last year?
Yeah,
That's 13, yeah, around 13 years of training. So
yeah,
it's almost like double,
yeah,
nearly double the amount of time between competitions.
yeah. Well, again, send me a photo of or anything you got about the IFBB comp because I would love to when I'm gonna showcase this video up on
Mm.
the channel.
Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah, I will. I will.
You
I'd
know,
like for people to see
yeah,
the difference in like maybe in some particular shots, it's not going to look like now I'm really any bigger, but just the quality of muscle and obviously the body fat percentage. Like I'm the same. I'm actually a little bit heavier now, and I've got less body fat than obviously that 6 or so years ago when I competed the first time. Um, but just the quality, it's just different. It's like you say muscle maturity. It just looks different and better each year.
yeah. Well, I mean, if you got lower body fat and you're at the same weight or even higher, that's definitely more muscle growth. But although it might not look, you know, infinitely different, like with million light years away, different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
The difference is there, as you said, in the quality because um, I think personally, as a natural bodybuilder, most of us, I think, I know a lot of people are gonna comment from me saying this, but I'm taking this from Mike O'Hearn, who I've actually spoken to personally in the States. But he states, as an example of a possible natural bodybuilder, I mean, that's what he states, right? That
mhm,
he hasn't changed much in weight since he was a teenager. And
yeah,
what's happened with his physique is that he's gotten more dense over time, just like what you're stating right now, and that you more or less are predestined to have a certain body weight that is natural to you. And you got to understand how things work because your own organs have to be able to support a certain amount of body weight, a maximal amount. You can't go higher than that or you'll get sick.
mm,
Or the only way to do that, of course, is by enhancing yourself. But
yeah,
for example, with Mike O'Hearn, his maximum body weight, I think, when he was a teenager, and he's basically maintained it, is about between 225 and 230, if I'm not mistaken. And he is no heavier than he was when he was a teenager years ago.
Do you know how tall he is?
He's about 6 foot something. He's definitely way taller than me. I'd say 6'2". He's freaking Titan. He's Titan, right? He
Mm.
calls himself Titan because he is a Titan. He's very tall.
Yeah,
But
okay, yeah,
you know, I agree with what he said there that um if you start training as a teenager, you quickly realize what your maximum body weight is. And
yeah,
over time, like yourself, you'll find that you continue to consistently train, your body fat will start dropping, whereas your muscles will continue to grow, but you'll maintain that body weight, but you'll look infinitely larger because
yeah,
the quality of muscle is just way better. And
yeah,
that's the only reason why I kind of tend to believe Mike. Although,
mm,
yeah, a lot of people are going to comment on this, Carlos, you're crazy, blah, blah, blah. But at least that makes sense, what he's stating there. And it makes
yeah,
sense,
absolutely.
especially when I talk to you, because I mean, we've known each other now for 3 or 4 years, and I've
Hmm.
seen your body mature over those 3 to 4 years. And it was way better than what it was when we first talked, right? And
Yeah,
yeah, I think there's a big point there. And again, only unless you go through that period of time, that long period of time, are you actually going to really experience that. And I think most people, as you mentioned, are just too frightened to even think about doing that. So, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. When it for whoever cares. when it comes to Mike O'Hearn, it's the same for anyone. I don't care if it's The Rock, Mike O'Hearn, whoever's disbelieved. I'm going to give them the benefit. If they tell me I'm natural, it's no skin off my nose. Like, I'm going to believe them because I don't want to limit what I deem to be possible. And if I look at someone like Mike O'Hearn, I go, damn, I'd love to look like that naturally.
Yeah.
And if I believe it's possible, even if I just believe it's possible, I've got a far greater chance of achieving even something resembling that than someone that says it's absolutely not possible. Because I can guarantee the person that says it's absolutely not possible won't even achieve something in the vicinity on gear. So
they won't even try.
No, they won't try. That's right.
Yeah. So when we've talked about a lot about the building of the foundation and the absolute importance, and I hope people really who are listening to all of this and have stayed up to this point, because a lot of them probably switched off a while ago.
They turned it off as soon as they heard we believed Mike O'Hearn was natural.
Yeah. Now, when did you decide that you were ready again for competition? When, you know, because I remember a couple of years ago you said you're never going to compete again. So yeah.
Oh right, did I say that? Yeah. Well, I probably will again. I think I've decided that it's a very good tool. It creates, like I said earlier, a deadline, you know, to end such sort of particularly strict dieting. And I use those periods of time to get more content for the business. We usually do, you know, photo shoots, you know, maybe 2-3 times throughout the year. So I want to be not like in crazy good shape year round, but 2-3 times throughout the year, I want to be in good enough shape so that I can get some new film photos to take, you know, more YouTube content or whatever. I want to look. I still want to look as impressive as possible. I mean, I want to be realistic with people, but I also want to look good. So that's what I was doing. I think at the time it was just in preparation for photos. I can't remember, just like getting some video footage and photos. And I think I remember speaking to Brock and saying, I reckon I should just compete and we should film it, regardless of if I do well or not. And I think the idea was that both me and Brock were going to compete, and he ended up, I can't remember. He didn't do it. I ended up competing, and yeah, it made for great footage, great content, and my following tripled in that time too, which was good. So I'm glad I did it, and that's why I want to do it again, because I still don't think, like, I wasn't shredded by any means, but it was probably leaner than I have been in a long time. And I think doing it again will push me further. And I've noticed also in that rebound period, because that's a great time to gain new lean muscle tissue, is that sort of 4 or 5 week period after you get particularly lean. So I want to do it again and soon get really, really lean and see if I can gain any more muscle naturally.
Would you consider training for the Mr. America? Competing for the Mr. America, like I told you before?
Yeah, you mentioned that to me, and I was looking at the competition. I thought I'd get smoked. Like, it's
I think
it's another
round. Chance in the amateur division, at the very least.
As an amateur, sure, yeah, but I still think that's out of my realm. I think for what I'm trying to represent, I look good. I think I won't deny that. But when it comes to competition, I think I wouldn't ordinarily do very well.
Okay. Well, just keep it in mind.
I will. I definitely will.
How long was your cut period for this? Because now you're saying that you were preparing for photo shoots, and obviously you want to build your brand up and all that. But
yeah.
How long then would you say was your cut? Because then you decided to go serious mode for bodybuilding competition. So how long was it?
I think in total, because that was, I can't remember what the total amount of time was, but it was kind of like, it was longer than necessary. But I was sort of fart-assing around for like the first month because I was undecided about doing a competition. So I think from like 10 to 12 weeks out from it, I decided that I was going to do the competition. It could have even been like, 8 to 10 weeks out. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll definitely do it. But yeah, the actual sort of the cut where I actually bothered to do some cardio and all the rest of it, that was maybe 12 or so weeks where I went particularly hard. And I got as lean as I think I could
Yeah,
in
that's
that
all.
time frame.
Did you actually measure your body fat percentage at all?
No, I'm not sure what it was.
All right. So the video now, just going back to your video, Joel competes
Mm.
that you put on YouTube, and I love the scene where you're having breakfast, making this protein oats that you said looked like a big shit.
Yeah, yeah,
So can you describe your diet as you got closer to competition?
yeah. I did. I would do and I did it all myself. So it
Mhm.
was kind of like, again, it was kind of like, oh God, I've sort of got to learn my body a little bit here and try and remember or try and sort of formulate something that would get me in particularly good shape. So a lot of it was guesswork, but what I ended up doing was maybe like 6 or 7 weeks out, I started like carb cycling. Actually, I'm going to put a video on YouTube in like the next few days
Oh,
about
cool.
my diet at that time. It was from when I was competing. I'm just getting around to editing it, and I was carb cycling. So I might do like 3 to even there was sometimes there I'd do 5 days where I'd go particularly low carb
Mhm.
and still sort of conscious of the fat intake, but I'd still have like a fattier cut of steak and some whole eggs in that day.
Oh, yeah.
And then that might be followed by, a couple of sort of particularly high carb days. I mean, it was like, I don't know, it's still not that high carb. It would be only like 3 meals in the day that had carbs in them, but it'd be a significant amount. I might do like, I don't know, 300 to 400 grams of sweet potato in 2 meals, and then a pretty significant amount of fruit post workout. But it's not that high in comparison to a lot of people's diets. It was still I respond well to low carb, higher fat. I think I always have. So,
Yeah.
but it wasn't that hard. It wasn't that hard to like it wasn't that hard to get to the body fat percentage I got to. That's why I want to push it a little bit harder next time. It's not like I was starving or anything. I wasn't starving myself. I enjoyed the diet because it's not that much different to sort of how I eat year round anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know you eat so strict. I remember you gave me the program, and I was like, wow, this is the cleanest diet I've ever seen, It's
Yeah, no, yeah, people aren't
natural and
accustomed to it.
clean, what I mean, like not a single
Yeah,
supplement. By the way,
yeah.
that's guys, if you're watching, I know a lot of you are fans of Joel. His programs are completely supplement free. It's pure whole food, and you want to have glowing, wonderful skin like Joel, just get in touch with him. He's got great programs and nutritional and training programs. Um,
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that.
no worries, man. um, yeah, I was just going to touch on something. So basically, what I gather is like what you're saying is this is very similar to the old school golden era bodybuilding diet of high fat, high protein, cycling with carbs at the end of the week, more or less to speak, or something like similar to Vince Gironda's definition diet, which is basically steak and eggs with a big carb
Mm,
loading day every 4 days or so. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm glad you responded to that because there's a lot of people that actually believe that because it actually works for them. For others, it doesn't. But it's good to see
mm.
that you're employing such diets and that it does well for you. And, I mean, the physique you get from it is freaking enormous, freaking fantastic. So that's what I mean. It's great.
I'll take enormous.
Well, I mean, just the result is so good to see, because
Yeah,
now there's such an overcomplication, as you know, on macros and everything. How
yeah, yeah,
how precise you've got to be about the carbs and this and that. And
yeah.
just to hear your approach, yeah, basically steak and eggs most days, and then every 4 or 5 days, a large amount of fruit and carbs. I mean, that's just as easy as a steak and eggs diet. That's a
Mm.
kind of cycloketogenic, so it's pretty awesome. Did you?
It's I like the reactions, even from especially from my family. I like the reactions when I tell people I ate steak every single day. And like you can't have like because you read somewhere. I remember growing up, I read somewhere you shouldn't have red meat any more than like 2 times in the week,
Yeah.
and I really thought, oh, okay, and I never questioned it. I
Mm.
never asked why. It was just that was how. most people were raised, and that
Well, it's
you were taught
ingrained,
that
isn't
in
it?
school. Yeah, yeah, it's ingrained. It's like it's the same thing as like have 8 ounce glasses of water every day. Like, where's that? Where does this stuff come from? And when you try and investigate it, it's like it came out of nowhere, and we just all did it.
Uh,
And now when I eat steak every single day, I mean, the downside is it can be expensive if you're getting good quality meat. But when I eat steak every day and eggs every day, and I eat whole eggs, and I'm taking in a decent amount of cholesterol, I feel amazing. I feel fantastic.
you know, here's just a little tip. You can take it or throw it in the trash. But
Okay.
when I was trying to do steak and eggs a few years ago, I'm talking 20 years ago, as a
Mm.
student trying to, get big back then at least, I found that obviously as a student it was very expensive to do steak
Yeah.
and every
Oh
single
yeah,
day.
yeah,
Eggs were fairly cheap, but the steak was very expensive. So I
yeah.
actually took a page from Vince Gironda and started eating organ meat, which still, even nowadays, is all right. It's not as palatable as you'd like it to be, but fairly cheap. And things like heart, which not many people want to eat, liver, tend to be up to 5 to 10 times cheaper than steak, and probably way more nutritional because organ meat is just super rich in nutrients. I mean, just letting you know, it's super cheap, and if you want to try that out, yeah, it at
No,
least
no, yeah, no, I know.
saves you
There's
the
actually a
money.
in in my nutrition ebook, there's a recipe in that is using liver.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I do, yeah, and I think Brock mentions maybe in the recipe video itself just how cost effective it is.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
a lot cheaper. Yeah,
Most people just simply will not even touch that. But when you
yeah,
consider the animal kingdom, the lion, the first thing they go for is the organs where the nutrients are. That's got to say something. I mean, I don't
yeah.
agree with eating it every single day like that psycho liver king does, but yeah, but I think having it a couple of times a week, different organs
Yeah, yeah,
that you can actually enjoy and find palatable. At least you got to enjoy your food, right? Um,
yeah, yeah,
it's actually going to do you a lot of benefit as well. So not just your
yeah.
pocket, but your overall health. So anyway, um,
Sorry to say, I should mention. I think I've really only got about 5 or so more minutes. I'm
damn.
hoping
Okay, I'm only
to finish some
halfway. So all right.
halfway. Oh, jeez.
All right. Well, we'll stop it after this final question. Did you count your nutritional macros at all, or on this diet, or
Uh, no, I knew how much protein I was taking in and roughly how many grams of carbs over the course of a day each day I was taking in roughly. Fat I wasn't that aware of, but this was I I kind of I do kind of know, but yeah, the fat more so. I don't think I could say for certain because each cut of steak I was having, there was like completely different fat content in that. So,
Mhm.
but roughly, yeah, I did. That's probably the most I've that's the most meticulous I've been in tracking. But I definitely didn't know the caloric intake.
Okay. All right. Um, I still got 10 more questions, so I think we have to wrap it up and schedule
We
another.
can always do a part two.
Yeah. I think that's important. I don't want to rush through this, but it's been really
Yeah,
enjoyable.
fair enough.
I really want to thank you for
No,
your
I should have told you ahead of time, but
time. It's all
I
good.
thought, oh, an hour should be okay.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So thanks,
But
Joel, for your time and answering my questions. I think a lot of people that saw those videos wanted to know a lot of your preparation and everything you did, and just to hear how relaxed you are about your whole approach is refreshing, but it's going to be frustrating for those bodybuilders out there that are, you know, obsessed with every macro. And yeah.
yeah, I know. Like, if they're interested, I would say it was about 250 grams, maybe just under, of protein per day.
Yeah.
On like the high carb days, it might have been like I don't know, three to 400 grams, maybe yeah, around 300. On the low carb days, it was really probably only around 100,
Mhm.
maybe even less. It's just some fruit post workout. But I'm going to put I'm going to put up a YouTube video that details just what I ate in a day on a low carb day during that cut.
Yeah, awesome. I think people will be interested in that.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, man, you're busy, so I'll let you go. But thank you again for your time, and enjoy your Sunday.
Thank you. You too. We'll tee up a part 2.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. How do I stop this? Here we go. Head to www.goldenerabookworm.com for the biggest range of classic old school bodybuilding books as ebooks, e-magazines such as Iron Man and Reg Park Journal, high quality bodybuilding posters of the golden era stars, merchandise and classic gymwear featuring Steve Reeves, Marvin Eder, John Grimmick, Reg Park, and many other golden era stars. For those wishing to build a classic physique, lose fat and build muscle, online training is also available. Collectibles such as rare autographed photos from the golden era stars are also available, and to collaborate, please get in touch. As a natural bodybuilder, it is imperative to know your own testosterone levels, as they are a reflection of the anabolic environment created by your diet and training. I would highly recommend using the male hormone test kit from Let's Get Checked, and make sure you use my code GOLDEN30 for a 30% discount. Again, the advantage of checking yourself regularly is that you will know how well your body is anabolically primed to put on the much desired muscle you are working for. Not all of us have the time to go to a gym or the opportunity to have a coach to teach us one-on-one, but with the Future Fitness app, it's like having a personal trainer in your living room. From February 11th onwards, you can try the Future Fitness app for only $19 for the first month. Think of what you can accomplish during that first month. So go on and hit my link at tryfuture.co/GEB to get started. Now, if you're interested in learning more about Vince Gironda's approach to bodybuilding, his principles, and all these tips of wisdom that he has, but to be honest, these 3 books, I believe, which I call the Classic Physique Bundle, are the best books that Vince ever came out with. And they, of course, are the Wild Physique, the Master Series, and the Pro Series. Have a look at it this way. The Wild Physique, I believe, is like the ABCs of Vince Gironda's principles to bodybuilding. He teaches you the exercises and his principles, but how do you put them together? Well, the Master Series is a 14-month program of using all of these principles, all of the diets that Vince came out with, all of the exercises. And of course, the Pro Series was a book that he came out with later on, specially targeted for getting into competition. It's just these 3 books, as I call it, the Classic Physique Bundle, Vince's best work, and available, of course, at www.goldenerabookworm.com.